Yeah, man. Thank you.
What an
Appreciate it.
ugly trophy. That's come on. It looks like a He-Man doll. You know
Come
what I
on,
mean?
dude. I mean, look at this guy.
Right. You got it next to the Jordan fucking painting. Probably cost $500,000, and you got that bull. Hey, everybody, welcome on back to Rubbin is Racing. It's brought to you by NASCAR. NASCAR is going into Darlington, rolling into South Carolina this weekend for the Goodyear 400. You can catch it Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern Time on FS1. And if you haven't been watching NASCAR, you missed what was probably the best race of the year this past Sunday. And I think the fireworks are going to continue for the rest of the season. So NASCAR is the place to be outside of the Chicago race and all the other, wild stuff that they're doing. The races are getting better. The drivers are heating up, and they're starting to throw some punches. It's a little bit different today. Spider is off. Spider is not off. He didn't take the day off. He's doing Most Dangerous Game or something like that for what the fuck's it called? Do you know?
What do you mean?
What's the name of the thing?
You got it right.
It's the Most Dangerous Game.
Show.
Yeah, so we do like a game show, and it's sort of like a Fear Factor type thing. So Spider's competing in it this year with a couple other people in content. So he's on the West Coast right now doing some wacky shit. So sitting to my immediate right is Quigs. Quigs does all the stuff for us on social and whatnot. Sean Quigley. Sitting straight across from me on the ones and twos is Liam. He's our guy. He's our producer. He's the god. And then we have Mamba. We have Mamba back. We have the chief hype officer of NASCAR, Mamba Smith, who was probably our first guest, I think. Yeah. So when Spider was out, I said, "Will you sit in just for it?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, just send me a link." So he's here.
Easy.
How you doing, Mamba? Everything good?
Dude, I'm great. There's a lot of racing going on in America this weekend. But no doubt the best racing was in Kansas, which I'm sure no one was expecting that.
Yeah.
And the weekend was hot, man.
Yeah.
It was a good time though. It was a
Were
good
you at
time.
the race?
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually right behind. I heard the crack of whether it was Ross Chastain's fingers or Noah's head. I don't know
Jaw.
which, but
Right.
I was right there for it.
Yeah, we're going to get into it because it was a hell of a weekend. I start with headlines, but nothing trumps what happened on the track. I will mention real quickly that, as NASCAR celebrating its 75th anniversary, they're doing the top 75 drivers. Since the last time we spoke on Rubbin, Kurt and Kyle got it. Kurt and Kyle Busch got added to the list. Harvick got added to the list, and Joey Logano. So congrats to all those guys. But let's go right to Kansas. You had mentioned it was hot. It was 122 degrees inside the car. Somebody was saying, like they kept on showing that little thing. So it looked like it was quite literally absolutely hot. But these boys are built for that for some reason. I mean, it would fucking kill me, but it doesn't them. Coming into it, there was a big storyline that they were trying to fabricate that the 45 car could have been the first since like 1948 to win 3 races in a row at the same track with 3 different drivers. Right, with Bubba winning in the fall, Kurt Busch winning in the spring, and now Reddick behind the wheel of the 45. I bought into it, and I bet it. Right, I mean that was the reason that I did it, and Reddick finished P9. Yeah, I thought so, but so that was kind of like a story. There wasn't much going into this. I mean, there was the Ross Chastain hatred still floating above everything else, but there wasn't a ton of storylines going into the race. And then the race happened, and we got 37 lead changes from 12 drivers, which is a record for a 400-mile race on a mile-and-a-half track. We got the first ever lap pass for a win at Kansas. It was the best race of the year for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I loved it. I thought it was very exciting. The end was just like real racing. Like just knowing that like Larson had a little bit of a gap on him. You knew Denny was going to get up there by the end. A little bit of like tire management, and I thought it was great.
Does Kansas become that track? Do we circle September 10th for the Hollywood Casino 400 brought to you by the Barstool Sportsbook? Because it's a fun track to watch, races on. Is it one of those one? Because I didn't consider it. Whenever I ask drivers what's their favorite track, what's the one that I have to go to, which is what we've asked guys ad nauseum. Just about every driver we speak to, we ask them that.
Yeah.
No one has said Kansas. I think that's starting to change.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a beautiful weekend. Like the sun was out. They have this new thing called the Highline District over in Turn 1. So like they have a bunch of food and like games at pickleball. Like it was a good time. The vibe and the infield was good. The camping's good. We're right outside of Kansas City. So like if you want to leave the racetrack and go do something, like we're in a really good spot. And the racing was fantastic, and they're running the top most of the time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's super hard. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to do that lap after lap and not run into the fence. And to that point, and since it was so hot, I want to give some credit to Tony, because Tony ran the ARCA race and the truck race. I know you guys had her on the show
Right.
the other week, but like, she ran the ARCA race and then the truck race in the same day.
Yeah.
In that heat.
Yeah.
Like 300 miles or something, like, and did good in both races.
Yeah,
so
finished 15th in the truck.
Yeah, P15.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's Tony Breidinger that he's talking about, who's I mean, without a doubt, she's our favorite Victoria's Secrets driver. I could say that one.
Number
that way, I
one.
don't get in trouble with Helly Deegan or anything like that. She's our favorite in the number one truck. And by the way, I thought it was like it just bonked me as soon as I say it. I thought it was like a sexy skin on the car, like that paint job thing. It was kind of cool. It was alluring. It's like the tag off a bra or something like that. They did a good job with that.
Turned on by the car.
Yes, I was. Fuck
Hey,
you.
you know, I was walking by her. I was walking by her when she was on the grid, and you know, there's a lot of cameras around because she was making her start, and she was like sitting on the door, right, like just straight chilling.
Yeah,
straight chilling. I walked by. I said, "Damn, Tony, you looking real cool today." And she goes, "Really?" I'm like, and she goes, "That means a lot coming from you." I'm like, you know it.
Yeah. You don't turn it off. She was great. She was great coming on, like, you know, 'cause she doesn't know Spider or I, and you know, we were relatively inappropriate with her, and she handled it pretty well. So I'm hoping to see her again.
Man.
But I think P15 in the trucks, right?
Yeah. I bet on her just in case.
Did you? Yeah,
A dollar to win 1,500.
I put in
like I could do worse things with $1.
I put
no
in, like,
chance she was ever gonna win.
a
But
$10 bet, and Barstool Sportsbook was like, "We have to get this verified.
we got to
first."
clear it.
You
Yeah,
know,
they got to do the risk management on it.
Yeah, so they finally let me in. Winner was Denny. So we'll talk about the race and then we'll talk about the fight. I think that's the way to go. So
Yeah.
Denny's 49th career Cup win puts him tied for 15th all time with Tony Stewart, and it snapped a 33 race winless streak. It was his fourth win at Kansas, making the most ever at that track for a single driver. And now Kansas is the fifth track where Denny Hamlin has 4 or more wins at. I think that's extremely impressive, right? I mean, I know he's already, you know, one of the 75 best drivers. They had put him on that, but I got to be honest. I'm going to do some twisted history on that stat with Denny, but he continues to impress, and he does it without a Cup championship, which is kind of the rub on him. But it got a little interesting towards the end. So Larson in the lead, and then Denny said that he was side drafting him, and then there was a little bit of contact, took Larson into the wall, and Denny took off, and he took the checkered flag. I'm going to ask Denny in a little bit about his level of aggression there, but do you guys think that being however many races we are into the season, we're not even halfway through the season yet, and being 33 races in a drought, do you think that added to his aggression as far as how he drove with Larson, or was it just the same old Denny?
So I had Larson to win it. So like,
Yeah.
So you're hurt.
but I wasn't as hurt. Like it felt about as clean of like a little bit of like making contact move as you could. It was more he didn't lift, like, which you're not gonna lift there. Like Kyle was holding on, especially those last, like, the final second and third lap. Like, you could tell he was getting very loose, and Denny wasn't getting as loose as him and was gonna have a chance. And I think Denny said that he hit the wall before Denny made contact, which I think Denny was gonna do whatever regardless. Like I don't think if Kyle didn't like hit the wall and slow down a little bit there, he wasn't gonna like not put the bumper to him. But
Larson didn't seem upset by it either.
yeah,
And maybe
it felt
because there was
just
a
like
fist
a
fight.
racing deal. Like it was. I was okay with it.
What did you think of the move?
I mean, so it was a racing deal because they're racing for the win, right? I mean, like, you got to lay it all out there. And at the end of the day, the 11 can't worry about whatever the 5 feels like, because he's got to put bread on his table. Like, his guys don't get bonuses if he don't win the race. You know what I mean? So, like, it's every man for himself. But I think the racer in you, if you're in the lead, you would hope that I would rather get doored down in 3 and 4 than turned down the front stretch, down the back stretch. You know what I mean? Like, so let's say they make it down into turn 3 and then Denny goes to the bottom, tries a slide job, and just slams Larson in the fence, and like they're door to door off up the fence, and then that's how it ends. I think everyone's totally fine with that. But when you hit someone front bumper to back bumper, it changes the whole vibe of the race, of the ending. You know what I mean? Like kind of like when Logano hit Byron at Darlington last year, it was front bumper to back bumper. Those type of contacts, it kind of rubs you the wrong way when you're the guy getting your back bumper beat off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but on a short track, we're all about it. It's like, it's entertainment, and honestly, it was great. But I hated it for Larson because he came from the back to the front.
We had Larson as the boosted bet here at Barstool with me and Spider, so we had him also. And I'm going to mention this to Denny, one of Denny's guys. I don't know if you ever met Red Rocks Ron.
Red Rocks Ron.
He's fucking awesome. Yeah, one of the greatest guys.
Yeah.
I do. I love the guy, honestly. And so I had the Kyle Larson bet ticket up, like for people to follow us, and all he did was send me Denny Hamlin right afterwards, like to kind of rub it in. Yeah, so I'm going to mention that to Denny in a little bit. All right, so then we'll go to and I don't think there's much more to say about the race, right? Like Denny won stage 1. I think Logano won stage 2. Logano, the only other thing I'm going to mention about him is when that fight. But when that fight broke out too, did you see Logano sort of in the background, just sort of with his coke? Yeah, just kind of watching it. Yeah, he's like, I got front row seats. So I'm going to go to the fight. And before we talk about the fight, I'm going to talk about another fight that's coming up this weekend. Rough and Rowdy 21. Rough and Rowdy 21, I'm calling it barely legal, is going down in Huntington, West Virginia. I'm heading down there as soon as we get done with this. I'm hosting the weigh-in on Thursday night, which you can catch on Barstool's channels. And then Friday's all the action. We got like 20 fights. We have one guy who I think is 5'6" and 376 pounds. Yeah, he's a big boy. So we got some big boys in there. We have the dwarf fighters, including Bobby Joe, beautiful Bobby Joe. I'll be reffing that fight. I'm going to ref the midgets again, or dwarf fights, or whatever it is. I'll be reffing those in one other fight. Then there's an elimination match between Ninja, Shizat, the Rizat. Loser is going to retire from Rough and Rowdy, and they've been mainstays there. It's going to be one of those ones where I think it gets pretty fucking wild. So what I'm telling you is you can join me, Dave, Big Cat, Robbie, Frank the Tank. All these guys will be down in West Virginia, hosting Rough and Rowdy 21, and you can get it on buyrnr.com, buyrnr.com, and it's Hot Wheels is coming in. I'm also judging the bikini contest afterwards.
Nice.
So yes.
In West Virginia?
Yeah, West Virginia. It gets pretty methy.
You'd be surprised.
I've said it a bunch of times. Sometimes like these girls do splits, a couple of school rings fall out. It's one of those things where it gets a little bit.
They beat your type, Mambo. Definitely.
Yeah,
right,
believe me.
Down my alley.
Yeah, especially the way you talk to Tony Bridinger. All right, so that's the fight. That's the fight that's happening Friday. But the shot heard around the world was Noah Gragson going up to Ross Chastain afterwards. And from a fight fan's perspective, as a guy who watches a lot of boxing, as a guy who's a licensed amateur boxing referee in the state of West Virginia, as a guy who's a 7'5" in the ring, and which is a ham and egg type thing, but I've watched more boxing than you guys have ever seen. Ross Chastain played that fucking beautifully. He played that beautifully. I don't want to pick a winner here. I'm gonna actually ask Denny to pick a winner, but Gragson goes and grabs him, but he doesn't grab him up on the shoulder. Kind of gets him in the chest.
Gets him like a little low, like kind of like on the hip.
And then Ross immediately neutralizes Gragson's right hand, and then Ross gives himself enough leeway that he can come over the top with a right hand that landed right on the button, and it had that perfect knock that you could hear. I thought Gragson took it like a champ. His chin is very, very good. But I also think that Ross really benefited, obviously, from the security guards coming in, grabbed Gragson on his swing. He was coming with an overhand right, and then Ross got behind started to use security like a bitch. No, it's not like a bitch. Anybody would have done it, and everybody was fucking dying to see more. I don't know if people I'm a Gragson guy on this, or even what Gragson had approached him about. Chastain wasn't even that naughty on the track with Gragson, so you can argue that. I think everybody just wanted to see just a couple more punches being thrown. Yeah. They robbed
at least the return one, the one that it was there. He had it, and it just got caught in a net basically. all I needed was one return one. But yeah, I think that a lot of people are like mad at the official, the guy with like the gold shirt.
Yeah.
He has to stop it. I think it's just more you wish it happened where there weren't a bunch of officials around. Like
Right.
they have to stop it, but all I needed was just one return one.
They should have been like the Jerry Springer ones, where they just let it go. They let them punch each other for like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
and then
then
they're like,
they'll-
all right, then we'll
They'll break
jump in.
them up and
Yeah.
just let them go again. Yeah.
The only thing is that I would love to see it. Nobody loves to see fights more than me, particularly dwarves. But it's one of those things where, like, there's so many bystanders around. Like, you can't let it go into hockey, and then you see like the Brad Kay, Jeff Gordon, where the pit crews got involved. Like that becomes a melee where I think people could get hurt, right? And these guys aren't wearing pads. They're wearing fire suits. They just got out of a 122-degree car. So. Even though I want more, I can understand. There's no fines. Like as of this morning, there hasn't been a fine.
Which I love that.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
100. I'm hoping to God that they don't throw a fine at this, because
Yeah.
fine guys who bump you on pit row, right? When Suarez was on tilt the other day, and I said how dangerous that was. There was like a guy standing in the track could have got fucking killed. Fine people for other things, but not when they say stuff on podcasts, and not when they settle it on pit row with a quick punch.
Yeah.
What did you think of the fight, Mama?
So man, there's so much to unpack, right? Like, so first of all, like those two guys that got in that broke it up, they're heads of security. They're not even officials. They're heads of security. So like their job is different, right? Like, so the officials came in pretty late, honestly. But to you guys' point, like tensions are high. Noah came down. He was ready to go, and they let it go. But if Noah was really wanting to fight him, he should have swung first. To me, like if that was really what he wanted to do, he should have got it in first, because they know that they're not going to let him go rounds, And honestly, I don't want him to, because there's too much money on the line for what they do. To where if it is, and then on top of that, you guys talked about the pit crews getting involved. Bro, like if my little brother is getting his ass whooped, I'm jumping in and helping him out, right?
Right.
So what the cameras didn't catch is right behind him, there was half the legacy team and half of the Trackhouse team. They were both sitting there, and one of the legacy guys started to kind of move in, and one of the Trackhouse guys grabbed him and was like, "You stay out of this."
Oh, good.
And they like we have got to the point where the teams understand. Do not get involved, or else you're getting fined and suspended, right? Like that's how it's going.
Yeah,
it's important, man. Everyone knows the rules now.
And everybody for people who haven't been down to pit row, you don't recognize until you're down there just how massive the pit crew members are. They're all ex-athletes. Yeah, I mean, Swanee is ripped to shreds and stuff like that. He's a big boy, but also there's that guy who played for the Braves, Ray the gas man.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, Ray is huge. Chase Elliott has a guy who used to be a bounty hunter, and this guy is also ripped to shreds. I think he played football at Iowa. They're all like real college athletes, and they're big boys compared to these smaller drivers. You know what I mean? Like these drivers have to fit in the seats. They're not big boys. And so if they got involved, I think it would have gotten a lot messier.
And beyond just teams, there's so many
media people. There's a lot going on.
And there's a lot of drivers that hate Chastain, where you don't know if like other people who aren't just necessarily like Gregson's guys might feel the need to kind of like get involved and pick a side, and you don't know.
So that part, the people. So the thing about Ross right now, right? He's a lightning rod. Like everyone wants a piece of him, right? And Gregson, he ain't scared.
Yeah.
And so for their team, right, too, they're not running really well this year. They probably struggle more than they thought. They just made that switch to Toyota for next year. One of the ways that they're going to be in the media is whatever Noah does, just because he's an outward personality. Yeah. And he was in a no-lose situation.
Yeah.
He goes down and yanks the guy that everybody is mad at. Probably gained a lot of respect.
Yeah, I mean, he got attaboy from Chase right after.
Yeah,
right away, ate the punch. So, like as a fan, you're like, damn, I respect that. And then you respect Ross too for sticking up for himself, because I'm not going to let someone manhandle me either.
Yeah.
You know. So,
but what do you think about this though? And again, like I like Noah Gragson. Like I had said, how when we were down in Talladega, he was a great mouthpiece for Wendy's. He was going around like, I think at one point he was in a wheelchair, like
I
like
saw
just
that.
going around like
That was awesome.
giving out stuff. He was part of the float when the float we were on it, and then they had to do like the goofy pillow fights and shit like that. He was hosting it. He's become like a really good ambassador for his brand. But as soon as this fight happens, they'll go back to the '79 Daytona 500 fight, right? And they'll show that clip. And then they'll go to the Brad K fight. They'll show that clip. So this clip is going to be shown now for years to come, and it's going to be with that goofy fucking haircut, right? Because
he's going to regret having that.
Just lost that bet. So this is now immortalized, right? Just the punch that landed, and it's that goofy fucking Dumb and Dumber haircut. It's got to kill him. That's got to kill him.
I got to put some respect on my dude's name.
Please.
He did. No one knew this, but he did shape it back up. So like,
he did.
It was just long. So like, but the last time everyone saw him on TV, it was the bowl cut.
Yeah.
So like he's getting filleted for that haircut flapping in the wind, and it wasn't even like that.
So is he on tilt also, like you're saying Legacy is underperformed, and we've had them as underperformers, a couple of weeks casually on this podcast, but since they're going to switch over to Toyota, and I'm just thinking out loud, does Toyota put them on the pay me no mind list, like for the rest of the season? I know Toyota, the Chevrolet, does Chevy put them on the pay me no mind list because they're leaving? Like, you know what I mean? Like, right.
I know what you mean, but I don't know enough to know like what kind of support
there's
the
only so
manufacturers
much to go around.
give you and whatnot, but they're definitely not making a team that's leaving a priority, I would think.
So, well, they're not on the A program either, right? Like they're one of the B teams, and which is why they're making the switch, because they need to be. If you want to compete with the big dogs, you got to be on the A program with somebody.
Yeah.
So but at the end of the day, everyone in this garage is a competitor. They don't want to lose. You know what I mean? Like there's no tanking. Like people don't in NASCAR. Like there's no team that tanks because you're not going to win anything for tanking. There's no draft pick. There's no like, oh, we get a sponsor. No. You got to go perform. So for them, if they perform even a little bit better, like get some top 15s, maybe still a top 10. Last year, Eric Jones won here at Darlington in the Southern 500. So like if they have a win in the last little bit here, but like if they can just kind of finish races and build on it, they'll be just fine. But I don't think Chevrolet is going to give them bad stuff. You know what I mean? They're not going to sabotage them, but
they're certainly not a priority.
They're not going to be a priority. I'm going to tell you this. When I was at SHR and we were under the Chevy banner, and I got over there and so we were getting all our stuff from Hendrick. Well, sometimes, and then they have all these like group meetings, right? And they all get together and they're like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're running and trying to work together. Man, once it gets to the playoff time, them boys ain't working together.
No,
because you know what setup would work in a car, and when they're comparing notes, they're like, "This ain't what you're running." They're like, good luck, boys.
Right?
Every man for himself. At the end of the day.
So then that brings up a case too, like having some sort of support, and we know like people rely on drivers to support them on the track. Like Ricky Stenhouse being a one car team sort of relies on the kindness of others sometimes when he's racing. Like how does a guy like Daniel Suarez, who's essentially partners with Ross Chastain, feel about now? And listen, Chastain went from being not a nobody, but went from a guy who's just known as being a watermelon farmer, who's been in the Cup Series, I think this is maybe his third season full time. Like there wasn't a huge amount of backstory to him or anything like that, to then having the most electric move that NASCAR saw when he rode the wall last year. It was the most clipped thing in NASCAR history.
All sports last year is amazing.
And then now he does something and he throws the punch heard around the world. So like he's now like on the radar, and I think it's wonderful. And I think Gragson going in there and taking the punch was wonderful. It's bringing people what they want, which is old school NASCAR, grittiness. But what do you think Suarez is doing right now? Like, how do you think Suarez feels about, his teammate?
I don't know. I mean, Suarez himself has had a decent season just racing, like, especially the first, 7 races. He was very competitive, both Trackhouse cars. But I don't know if he cares that much. Like,
You don't think it's one of those like?
I don't think they're super. Which I don't really know. I just know, like they've had their own little tussles on the team. I don't know how close they are personally.
But you think it's like one of those? Calm down, man. That's my stance. My Daniel Suarez, by the way. You know, you want to get for the camera? Calm down, man. Football is life. Like that reminds me of the guy from Ted Lasso. Look at Danny.
That's awesome.
Football is life. Yeah.
Man, like Daniel, he's his own fiery guy, and you know he's gotten skirmishes with people too. Like I don't think. I think at the end of the day, like Trackhouse is his home, and you know he's a company guy and gonna do what's right for the company, but he's also gonna do what's right for him, which is what you gotta expect for everybody. I don't think he really cares. Like I think he lets Ross fight his own battles. And obviously Ross has got to the point where he's not afraid to fight his own battles. So it's all good. Like, you know what I mean? But they're going to get into it too. I don't think there's any teammates that haven't gotten into it. Right. Like even this weekend, Ty and Martin, you know, Ty kind of ran him up the track and Martin was upset about it. Ryan has gotten into it with like Austin Cindric, you know what I mean? Like teammate, it happens because even though it's a team sport, but it's also a solo. And sometimes it's hard to know where that line is, especially at the end of a race.
We had asked this a couple of weeks ago. We put a poll out on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to ask Denny in a couple of minutes also. If this stuff starts to happen more often, fights are happening, since you're very close to the drivers and very close NASCAR just all the way around, who do you think would do best in a bar fight? What active cup driver? I'm cutting it down. Like I had Jason Williams in there and all that. Active cup driver. Who's your guy?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I made this a tweet the other day of my top 5 guys I don't want to square up with. So one is AJ Allmendinger. He's been little his whole life.
Yeah.
Okay. So he ain't scared, like at this point, right? He's a spider monkey, and he's nuts. And I can say that because I know him, but he's nuts. 2, Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
Kevin Harvick, he's boys with Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah. Kevin Harvick would have threw first. Like Kevin would have, there wouldn't have been a grab. Like Kevin would have and then threw a punch. Go ahead, Kevin.
He would have at least had 2 to where like you wouldn't have just been able to, you know what I mean? 3, Martin Truex Jr. because old man strength is different.
What's up?
Yeah, see, large nose. Like when you get hit 40, like all of a sudden you're stronger for no reason.
Shit, that doesn't just happen, bro. Go ahead.
But because we're doing Cup, I did have Austin Hill.
Okay.
Because I've seen it last year, but we were doing Cup, which allows me to throw in BJ McLeod.
That's my guy.
BJ is one of the nicest guys, and everyone forgets about BJ. I'm like, I just haven't seen him in that mode, and it's hard for me. But I do know when all this stuff happened, like at Talladega with Bubba, the first guy that was pushing that car and was like strong manning that thing was BJ McLeod. Like he was up front and said, like, so that just showed me like he's about that life. If he needs to go, he'll go. And then Ryan Newman, because he's back. And Ryan Newman, dude, I'm telling you what, it's not that I'm afraid to throw it like that he's going to connect. It's that anything you do to him, he's not going to feel it.
Right. Yeah,
it's like the thing from Fantastic Four.
Right.
Like there's that rock and sock 'em, game.
Right.
Well, Clint Boyer did that to Ryan a few years back, and Ryan got out like, okay, where's Clint now? Because now I'm out of the car and now we can go.
Right,
dude,
right.
Those are my guys. I ain't messing with them.
I got to meet BJ on the float down in Talladega, and that's why. I mean, I keep talking about how scary this fucking guy is. Right down to the sideburns and the no affliction T-shirts and shit like that.
He just signed on with them. He just signed on with Affliction officially. Yeah.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Did he really?
Official guy now.
Yeah. He's like liquid death water. Like that's BJ's milieu, and I find it to be terrifying. All right, so we're gonna take a little bit of a break here. We're gonna go 3 wide with Denny Hamlin and see how he feels.
2 wide.
Yeah.
It's the rare 2 wide.
The rare 2 wide. Yeah. Because Spider's eating a lizard somewhere. But so let's go to. By the way, before I go, you say like when the pit crews and whatnot now have like the wherewithal to not jump in. I guarantee that if we were down in pit row and that shit popped off, Spider would have been in there. I know for a fact. For sure. He is fearless. He wants to be in that. I'm not saying throwing punches, but he would have, like, somehow he would have got. There's nobody better than Spider at that.
When Mama described Allmendinger, I was like, that's exactly Spider.
Those same guy, right?
Yeah. But so I'm correcting myself. We're going to go too wide with Denny Hamlin, see his take on the big win and on the big fight this weekend. All right, so like I said, I'm here with Denny Hamlin. I mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm going to say it again because it just sounds cool. It's 49th career Cup win, puts him tied for 15th all time with some guy named Tony Stewart. His 4 wins at Kansas makes it the most ever at that track, and Kansas is the 5th track where Denny Hamlin has 4 or more wins. That's just goddamn impressive. Denny, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Appreciate you spitting out my resume there.
Yeah, why wouldn't I? I'm going to ask you right off the bat. Red Rocks Ron. For people who don't know, Denny has a posse. And one of the main members of that posse is an older gentleman named Ron. He's sort of like me with the Rubbin His Racing crew. You bring him along, the guy drinks too much, he talks too much, he's awesome. As soon as you won, he hits me on the DM with a copy of my bet slip where we had Larson, and he said Denny won. He hit me with that as soon as this thing had gone out. We had Larson and Bell. That's the thing that we had elevated, and he just dragged it right into my fucking face. So when you do see him, and I'm sure you're going to see him pretty soon, make sure you tell him I said go fuck himself.
Well, for the last 33 weeks, he's just been like, come on, man, can't we get a win? I'm like, what? What the fuck are you doing? Like, seriously.
Yeah. He's drinking on your tab is what he's been doing. Talk to me about that. So 33 race drought. And you had said the week before about how awful you were coming off the pits. And on this show that we do, Rubbin His Racing, we do over-unders every week. And last week, my underperformer was actually your pit crew because I thought they'd cost you, I'm not saying that's the only thing, cost you a couple of wins or at least, obviously, some good track position. This week, that turned around. I mean, those guys were on point and possibly the best pit crew that was at Kansas. Do you think it's because they listened to me on the podcast, or did you have a couple of choice words for the boys coming into Kansas?
You know, I'm more of a motivational guy. I mean, certainly so many drivers when they have a bad pit stop, they hit the button on the radio and all of a sudden they're going off, right? And like, you know, what's going on? Let's get our head out of our asses or whatever. But I just never, you know, I haven't done that in 15 years. I just found that it's better just to, you know, they know that they need to get better. And so on Monday after Dover, I mean, they were at the shop at 7:00 looking through film, trying to figure out how they can get better. And, you know, the biggest thing they did on Sunday was they kept us in the game. You know, if we came in second, we came out second or third. Like, you know, we didn't lose any big chunks of time, and it kept me in the game. And I always thought that, you know, to put it in perspective, you know, they are the offensive line, right? Like, you know, you can have Tom Brady as your quarterback. It doesn't matter if he's getting sacked in a matter of 2 seconds. So, you know, when you have a race that's 190 minutes and they're on the field for 2 minutes of it, you just need them to keep you in the game at that point. And that's what they did this weekend.
I think drivers have a concern with getting a win every season. And I had spoke about, you know, when is somebody on the hot seat to get that win? At what point in the season does a driver say, shit, I really got to do something here? And you had something different. Being a Hall of Fame driver who's been at it for a long time, you were going through that 33 race drought that you had just mentioned where you're like, I got to get off the schneid. So what was more the feeling, or at what point in the season does an ordinary driver, a guy who is normally playoff bound, really start to feel the heat that they got to get that fucking win? Because we're not even like halfway through the season where you just got your first one of the season.
Well, it's when your teammates win. When your teammates win and you're not winning, that's when you should feel the hot seat because they're winning in the same equipment that you are. And so the equipment is more equal today than ever. You know, there's not a whole lot of differentiators in the team. The X factors are your driver, your pit crew, your execution, and the setups and simulation. So that's it. All the other parts and pieces are the same. So it really forces you as a driver to do the best you can because you're the biggest factor in that performance of all those other 5 things. So when your teammates win and you don't, that's when you got to look at yourself and figure out what you got to do to be better.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of animosity this season, right? A lot of animosity towards one driver in particular. Was there any animosity between you and Kyle after all is said and done? Or a couple of days after the race, as he reached out as far as how the race ended. By the way, we had mentioned it a couple of times already on the show. Best race of the season. A great ending,
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
obviously people are very opinionated about the move that you had made in the final lap. How has Larson been with you afterwards?
He's great. I mean,
Okay.
we're friends on and off the track, and I talked to him, a few hours afterwards, and I said, "Man, I didn't even think I touched you there. It was so light. I didn't even think I touched him." But as the driver on the inside, my responsibility is to get as close to his left side as possible. I can't see how far off the wall he is. I don't know if he's up against the wall or has he got 3 feet, 5 feet. I'm not sure. So, I actually probably took a little more responsibility before I actually saw the replay that, well, he bounced off the wall and then came to the left. And that's when I made contact with him. And surely on the straightaway, I wasn't going to lift at that point. But yeah, he's a very fair racer. He was like, man, that was a great battle in hard racing. Like, that's the way I see it. And certainly I think that, if the roles were reversed, would I be ticked off? Probably. I mean, I probably would, because listen, I've got probably less, fuel in the tank in my career than what he does. Right. And he's probably going to pass me in wins one day. But I've got to take advantage of every single opportunity I've got from here to the end.
So being ticked off or being disappointed is one thing, but going over and grabbing a fighter or throwing a right hand is another. What did you think about the fight? Were you more impressed with the right hand that landed from Chastain, or more impressed with Noah's chin? I thought both should be mentioned.
Both deserve P1. I thought it was an ultimate strategic move on Chastain's part to, as soon as he got grabbed by the collar, to reach for Noah's right hand and hold it.
Neutralized it.
So he neutralized his right hand. So he knew anytime a punch was coming, he wasn't going to come with a left jab, right?
Yeah.
He was going to go for a haymaker. So he put his hand on his wrist and told him to stop a couple times. And then at that point, you see him pull and punch. And it's like, oh, what a move, right? I mean, and then Noah takes it. And if you look, Noah is halfway to connecting.
Yeah, I know.
And here comes someone stopping it. It's like, oh man, Noah's chin was admirable, and it has been. He's taken a few hits here and there. I respect him for being a man, going over there and confronting. I respect Chastain for giving him like a couple warnings that, warning one, you better stop this shit or else you're about to get it, right?
Yeah.
So all of it was really good. I just wish it was an equal opportunity to, if you fire off one, you got to be able to willing to take the blow back, but
I think everyone was pretty frustrated without, actually getting to see what Noah had behind his right hand too. But I will tell you, if I'm going to give an edge, that psychopath smile that Chastain had, like he just bust out of an institution, like, right? That whole thing. I don't know if it was nervous or if it was one of those things like where somebody should check his fridge for like baby hands. That was some farm crazy shit, right?
I've interacted with Chastain enough to know that it's interesting. His thought process is definitely interesting. He's an interesting dude. I mean, he's obviously a hell of a talent behind the wheel for sure, but it was the smirk that certainly makes you kind of laugh. And then once he got his shot in and it was broke up, he was,
yeah, exactly.
Hands are up here. Hey, I'm defenseless. So.
Not only that, then he's got the good sense. I'm not saying balls. The good sense to go over and congratulate you. Like all of a sudden be like, I don't got a lot of friends left in this universe. Let me go and grab Denny when he's at a 34 race high and give him the old congrats. I mean, the guy's playing chess.
I mean, I think he's smarter than we give him credit for. That's for sure. We just think that, well, man, this guy's got no self-awareness whatsoever. Like, I think he's got more self-awareness than he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. So I don't know. I mean, I certainly I admire him for coming over to me and saying congrats. And obviously after our history, you would think that that'd be the last thing on his mind after getting in a fist fight. But I admire it. I mean, listen, he cut me a couple breaks during the race, and I said to him in victory lane that, hey, it didn't go unnoticed, and I owe you a couple. So, it's been good. I mean, I think that he's the points leader for a reason. That team's performing great, and he's Yeah, he's on it right now.
Yeah. Last thing before we move on, we had put out a poll the other day on who the toughest guy in the Cup Series was. The guy that you want to have at your back if you got into like a bar fight. And my guy was B.J. McLeod. I think B.J. McLeod is just like built different. He's one of those things. So as we're talking about fights, and people are actually hoping that we get a couple more fights this season. It's sort of bringing people back to when they were, old school NASCAR. Is there somebody, just by looking at him, and BJ might be the answer, that Denny Hamlin would be like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going up against that guy. Is there a crazy guy that you think could go through you?
I think there's some. Listen, these guys drive cars at 190. They're all nuts, right? I mean, they all have mental issues. But I'm going to say Michael McDowell for sheer size and brawn. You saw if you saw the highlight of when
Suarez won?
Daniel Suarez came over, like he put him on the hood like pretty quick, right? So
I think he grabbed his foot too.
I'm just gonna and Daniel is he's built. I mean that dude lifts a lot of weights, and he just kind of put him on the hood. So. I'm going to say McDowell.
Let's move on. So Actions Detrimental is the hottest new podcast in NASCAR this season, and it infuriates me that it dropped the same time that we started Rubbin is Racing. It's almost like personal. Like I'm Noah Gragson and you're fucking Ross Chastain. Whatever. So anyway, it's a very successful podcast, and obviously Denny's the host of it. You put together the bracket thing the other day, or resurrected it. I know it's been around before. It got mixed reviews. Like the purists say, hey, we don't need to add any more gimmicks or anything like that. But people like us who like to make the sport more interesting by gambling love the idea of trying to capture market share during those horse latitudes of the summer where you only have baseball. It makes too much sense. I would have been knocked out because I had Justin Haley over you first round. That's the whole thing. I like Justin with
first
a
of
bullet.
all, seriously. Seriously, you're an idiot. But listen, the drivers were talking about it. Like I got private messages from them saying like, this is awesome. You know how pumped I would be to know that I got to beat one guy this weekend? I mean, sure, it's in the dog days of summer. It's a gimmick, but it adds content. And it doesn't change the race. The race still goes on as normal, but all of a sudden a battle for 16th with 5 laps to go matters because it's between the 6th seed and the 26th seed, right? So it's like, to me, it's just free content. And, you got, Barstool and Action Network, those guys always talking about it. That's a good thing for our sport. You've got to get so many people care more about who they're betting on instead of their favorite team nowadays. Like it just makes too much sense. I think that you certainly should be able to dominate the summer months when you're going up against nothing but baseball. It makes too much sense to not do it. And it sounds like NASCAR is going to, take over the keys next year and do this.
Okay, that's my thing. I guess I'm looking for an update. It seems like it's something that's going to happen.
It is. I think, it's happening, no doubt, especially with the engagement that we got, 45,000 brackets. And again, they only promoted by myself and Dirty Mo on our channels. That was it. It was the only promotion. So I think that they see huge upside to it. I think that they could get it sold in 2 seconds for somebody to title sponsor it.
I will.
But and not only that, offer a huge pot to someone to get a perfect bracket, because someone who doesn't even watch racing, they're going to say, or I'm going to say, hey, you want to win $5 million, go fill out this bracket. And they're like, oh, it takes me 5 seconds and I got a chance to win $5 million. Absolutely. I'm just going to fill it out. And then they're going to tune in that weekend to see how the bracket's doing.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant, and I hope it goes through. And I was saying earlier, too, like they were saying maybe not race on Easter because of the stands. Making NASCAR the go-to thing to have on TV for Easter, and then making NASCAR have a 32-driver bracket somewhere in the middle of the summer. I mean, those are 2 annual events. Dirt track, maybe not necessarily Bristol, are 2 things that I could really get behind. And I think it's good for the sport. So I appreciate you pushing it through on, the second best podcast in NASCAR. Let's move
I
ahead.
agree with that. I'm big fans of Rubbin's Racing. I don't mind being P2.
Not this week you aren't. So let's go to Darlington. I haven't previewed it yet. Can you tell us about the track that's too tough to tame? Because it seems like guys who've been around, veterans, people are starting to choose veterans for this track also. Yeah. And if you look at the Barstool Sportsbook, the favorite number one with the bullet is a guy named Denny Hamlin. So can you preview this track and tell us what's different about the way that you're going to be racing on Sunday?
Well, it's a tough track mentally, physically. It's a driver's track because the driver can make a difference at that track. You can manipulate the way your car is handling based off of the line you choose to run. So there's something about it that has always been special that matches my style of driving, no matter what car we're racing. So, I anticipate getting my 50th in the month of May at some point. So
you've been getting cocky this past couple of weeks, right? Everyone's noticed that. I know you went to, Gilgit and you said, hey, listen, we're about to do this thing. And so I'm telling everyone that this is going to continue into Darlington, correct?
Oh, it's going to continue till we get to a road course, basically. You might as well just book that. So, listen, I said 4 weeks ago we were going to get white hot. Since then, no one's scored more points. No one's had a higher driver rating. The results speak for themselves, Large. Y'all are just the idiots that don't bet on me.
Yeah, you're damn right. That's all changing this week. So, by the way, if Spider starts betting on you, sometimes that's what was keeping out of winter circle. Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, so Denny Hamlin, he's the host of Actions Detrimental, unfortunately, but even more importantly, the driver of the 11 going into Darlington. He's number one favorite with a bullet, and I appreciate you coming on. I hope to have you back in a couple of weeks, Denny.
All right, appreciate it, Large.
Tell Ron I said go fuck himself.
I'll definitely do it.
Thank you, sir. All right, so Denny Hamlin is welcome back whenever he wants. Denny Hamlin is a great guy as far as I'm concerned. I know he's people hate him.
Yeah.
The comments right away, when he'd made that move on Larson, people wanted to crucify him. But
I get that with anybody, though.
Yeah.
Anybody who's making a move like that is going to get a little shit for it.
And Larson's loved.
Yeah.
Like, Larson is, renownedly loved by racing fans. Like, he has this kind of Jeff Gordon thing going on, but he just races, so it's kind of like a Tony Stewart thing.
Yeah.
And Denny, dude, if y'all would have heard, so I do driver intros every week, and so I'm blowing my lungs out trying to make him sound really cool, and Denny got booed before on driver intros, and then when he got out of the car, it was raining boos. It was loud. It was this is while the fight's going on. I'm like, I don't know which one to watch.
That's crazy. And again, from our perspective, podcasters or whatever, having a guy come on and give us an interview like that is priceless. And I think it's a little bit scoopy that what we got, that NASCAR is going to put in perhaps this 32 car tournament maybe as soon as next summer.
Have you heard that, Mamba? At least publicly, that because Denny said the tournament for next season is basically a done deal.
Honestly, I'm in the building, but he's in the meetings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he would know more than
But
me,
I haven't seen it publicly, so I think
I
that
haven't
is
seen
pretty
it anywhere.
newsy.
But now I'm gonna have to go ask and get some scoopies.
He made it sound like it was a done deal.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate
think it's
I
great.
love it.
I watched you guys talk about it, and it was people get butthurt about this gimmick stuff, but time out. The Winston Million, that was the same thing, right? And it was the Winston Million was you had to win 3 of 4 crown jewel races in a season between 85 and 97, and the only people to do it was Bill Elliott and Jeff Gordon. But how is that not any different than what we're talking about? You know what I mean? I just think that we're to the point where $1 million for them probably it's good money. I ain't scoffing at $1 million, but we should probably have it more because it's been $1 million for a while. And, it needs to be 5 or
inflation.
8, but inflation matters.
Yeah. I'm gonna kick into a little bit of twisted history. So, Mamba, just try to make people who are casual NASCAR fans and new NASCAR fans kind of know about some of the shit that's just very cool from NASCAR's past. And I couldn't pass this one up. So we had mentioned before, Denny, 49 career Cup wins. There are only 2 active drivers. I'm not counting Jimmy Johnson, who have more wins. You know who those 2 active drivers are? What 2 active drivers? Not Jimmy Johnson, have more wins than Denny Hamlin right now.
Kyle Busch.
I know.
Kyle Busch and who
the
else?
other one.
Who?
Kevin Harvick.
Kevin Harvick. Fuck, guys. So Harvick has 60 and Rowdy's got 62.
The only reason why I know that is because when Harvick won all those races a couple years ago, I would text Delana after every win. I'd be like, he can't retire. And she's like, he better fucking retire. We're done with this. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Just roll off 9.
I'll tell you what, they're really looking forward to having him in the booth. too. Like every
Oh,
time they
yeah.
keep mentioning him, even on like, these little NASCAR shows and whatnot, it seems like, I haven't seen him do much booth stuff. We've been saying how impressed we are with like, particularly how Joey Logano has been with some of these Xfinity races being up in the booth. So I'm looking forward to seeing Harvick in the booth, I guess, as much as I like
He's
watching him
good.
race. Yeah.
He's good. Kurt's good.
Yeah.
He's good.
So Denny's at 15 now. Denny's at 15 on the list. Number 14
Yeah.
on the list of most Cup wins is a guy named Junior Johnson. He has 50 wins. Denny's at 49. Junior's at 50. And then outside of Junior and Denny, everyone in the top 15 has at least one championship. Outside of those two guys, everyone in the top 19 has at least one championship, right? Which means when Denny passes one more guy, he will, I don't even think arguably, he'll definitively be the best driver to have never won a championship, right? I mean, that's what the statistics say. If he gets to 51, he'll be the best driver to have never won a championship, I think, right?
Close, because I will say that Mark Martin in his day, he finished second like 6 times in the points.
And he's 20th on the list. Like, that's my
Right,
whole
wins
thing.
list.
Yeah, so I think, like, if Denny now is going to be up 14, 13 on the list, you're starting to get towards top 10 most Cup wins and not have a
Yeah, I mean, it
championship.
does change.
It does, it does give it certainly makes the argument to put him with Marino and Barkley and, Allen Iverson and stuff as best athletes to not win a Cup, you know what I mean, or a championship.
I agree.
Yeah,
I like what
think
you
so.
did there.
Yeah. So, but I want to talk about the guy that he's going to pass, right? The guy who right now is the best driver without a championship. By that logic, is Junior Johnson, right? And he's number 14 on that list. His name is Junior Johnson. I've heard his name before. You've heard his name before. You've heard Junior Johnson's name before. I didn't know any of the stories about him. So I'm just going to tell you guys, as much as I like talking about the monkey, Jocko Flacco, that was in the car and got hit by fucking Pebble and went crazy, some of the drivers themselves are infinitely more interesting than anybody that you know. And Junior's one of them. And I say as driver, he didn't win a chip because as a racing team owner, he won championships with Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip, which Denny has the opportunity to do at 2311. If he doesn't win, he can win as an owner too. So that's good. Junior comes from Ronda, North Carolina. His great-grandfather was the second highest ranking Confederate general in the state. I mean, that's something you probably don't put on the resume, but that's what it was. This is something you don't put on the resume necessarily either. His father was a lifelong bootlegger, running moonshine. His father lived to 63, but spent 20 years in prison, right? So a third of his life was spent behind bars. Junior Johnson was also a bootlegger, and he was arrested in 1956 and spent a year in prison in Ohio for having an illegal moonshine still. And he was running fucking moonshine, but he only did a year in prison. This is the guy, right? But 30 years afterwards, on December 26th, the day after Christmas, 1986, Ronald Reagan granted Junior Johnson a presidential pardon for his moonshining conviction.
Really?
Which gave him back the right to vote. Like, he wasn't able to vote for 30 years because he was a convicted felon who'd spent a year in prison. 30 years later, Ronald Reagan's like, you're good. I think that's fucking fascinating, right?
So cool.
Yeah, on the racetrack, he was a short track specialist. Ned Jarrett said Junior was one of the 2 best dirt racers he's ever raced against. He's also credited as the first driver to use drafting as a technique because he never had the fastest car on the track, so he was the first one to slingshot. So he's credited as the guy who invented or perfected drafting, which we all know is fucking huge. Outside of the track, he owned a line of fried pork skins, Junior Johnson's fried pork skins, and a brand of country ham. And then he was nicknamed, like, I like Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, but Junior Johnson's nickname was the Last American Hero. That's amazing. And in May 2007, he teamed with Piedmont Distillers of Madison, North Carolina, to introduce Midnight Moon Moonshine, which was a legal 100-proof version of the shit that he used to make in his basement. So he owns a moonshine company. He's passed away, but he owned a moonshine company, a cracklins and pork skin fucking company, country ham, presidential pardon from Ronald Reagan. His great-grandfather was a Confederate general, and his dad spent 20 years in fucking prison. That's Junior Johnson. That's Twisted History NASCAR.
What a guy.
Right? Yeah. So you're better for knowing that. All right. So what we do every week is we do an over-under with Spider, where we have him pick like overperformers and underperformers from the previous week or from the previous couple of weeks. I'd ask you guys if you could come up with one. Do you want me to go first, or you guys have one?
Yeah, you go first.
All right, so I'm taking over a performer.
Because I didn't come up with one.
You didn't? No, that's okay.
No, I'll get one
Right.
off the top of my brain.
I have as the over performer was Toyota. Won 4 of the last 7 races with 4 different drivers and 4 different types of racetracks, and they just picked up legacy. I think Toyota is, right, like they have a couple of good headlines. And my underperformer is Ford. They only have one win this season, right, with Logano, and had only 1 car in the top 10 in Kansas. So the Fords have been struggling. So overperformer this week is Toyota. Underperformer is Ford. What do you got, Mamba?
My overperformers, I got JTG with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and I got Corey LaJoie. Both of those cars have just been like consistently like somewhere around the top 15. JTG, you would think they would be there, but again, they're a B program, right? They're a single car operation, don't get as many resources, but they won the Daytona 500, and it's not like they're not fast week in, week out. They've been there. And then, Corey, Super Shoe LaJoie. I mean, my man is just stacking pennies, you know what I mean? Like putting it together week in and week out, and I'm so proud of him for it. And then my underperformer, man, I gotta go with you on the Ford end. Like they are at an obvious aero deficiency compared to some of the other teams, some of the other OEMs, and they're struggling with it. And they kind of porpoise on which end of it is, and like you see it with the 14, he should be way better. And like Chase, they like either really fast or they're really struggling. So the Fords they gotta figure something out.
Yeah. All right. So then what do you got?
I got 2 overs, no unders.
Okay.
First over would be just the track. I thought the track was great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just so much fun. I feel like you could run multiple lines. The high line was like the one to run, but there were options, and it was a lot of fun. And then my other performer, I would go with Gragson.
Yeah.
Because my biggest complaint was about Legacy is they just felt boring all year. Like they didn't do a lot like race wise. They never came up in anything, and I thought that was, I mean, for me, like running like the social, there's nothing that does numbers like a fight, and you get so much out of it. You can post the fight. Now we got the fight with audio. Now we got a different angle, and it's like everything blows up. It's so much fun to watch. Like, and he ate it. Like I think he'll probably earn some respect from certain people. You have that stupid haircut that'll just be shown 10 years from now, and people like who knows where he'll actually be. I think he'll still be around in 10 years, but like people may think that was just his haircut forever. Like,
right.
That's just like. And it'll be like a 3-week thing in real life, but it'll get immortalized.
He lost the fight with a goofy haircut, and his team is struggling, but we still put him as an overperformer, and I couldn't be more in agreement with you. I couldn't be more in agreement. Like, I really think that kid, with the way he's been as a brand ambassador lately and doing the stuff that a lot of NASCAR fans want to see done, like I said, the whole grit thing, makes me feel like those 2 guys, Chastain and Gragson, are the future of NASCAR. Right.
I like that they're about it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people talk a lot, right? It's really easy to, be a lion until it's time to do lion shit. And they both were getting after it. I want to make a quick call to the car too. This car is producing some amazing racing. You just called it large, right?
Yeah.
Like the most passes on a mile and a half in a 400-mile race. Like that's wild. The safety aspect has gotten better. We've seen some really hard wrecks this year, and guys aren't getting hurt like they were last year. So baby steps on this thing, but it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, that's true too. So we'll put the car in there as an overperformer. So we're all just shitting on Ford. Like that's the only thing we got low. Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, we roll into Darlington. Let's preview Darlington. It's brought to you by NASCAR. So Denny just gave us his take. Darlington, the track too tough to tame. 1.366 mile asphalt track, an egg shape right? They had to build it.
Yep.
I'll do this twisted history at some point. They had to like keep a pond intact. So that's why the fucking thing is shaped like that. So you have to, like the crews have to set up their cars handling in a way that would be effective on both ends, right? It's got that egg shape. Everybody that I've spoke to has said that this is one of those ones where you are racing against the track as much as you are against everybody else. So it should be a good one. We should have 2 good ones in a row. And then hitting the wall is getting you Darlington stripe, right? Because the paint comes against the right side of your car. So we got a full weekend of racing for you coming up. We have the trucks on Friday night at 6:30. We have Xfinity Saturday at 1. And then on Sunday, we get the Goodyear 400 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, only on FS1. So that's going into Darlington. So with that, let's throw out some picks. Who wants to go first with their picking the tires?
I can go first.
Yeah, let's go.
So I have a play that I love, and it's not in the Cup. Kyle Larson is racing in the Xfinity.
Yeah, I saw that.
Plus 225, which is, I think, like, I thought he would be kind of like Kyle Busch racing trucks numbers, which is like usually plus 115.
Yeah.
For a track that is really about how much skill you have driving, maybe the most skilled driver there is in at least like stock car racing right now is plus 225. I think he could like sweep the stages.
Really?
So I'm hammering that. And then for the race itself, I'm going Chastain, which is I think there's value there, plus 1100. I like. A lot of times I go on like historically who's been best at the track, but I don't want to take Denny. I'm not going to take Kyle Larson. And I like Chastain plus 1100, and I also like Chase Elliott plus 1400. I thought last race he had some good moments. I think he's recovered. I hope he's recovered fully because this is a tough race.
Yeah.
And then also I'm going to take. So overall, the guys I like that I think could win is Larson, Denny, Tyler Reddick, Chastain, Chase Elliott. All guys that are under 11.5 on the door number. So I'm going under 11.5.
Oh, you're taking the under?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Plus 114.
Right. All right. I thought you were about to say that you're taking all those
No,
guys
no.
to win to do a spider.
Those are just guys that I think could win.
He really wanted to fill
You
in for
see how
Spider.
He wheeled the field.
Yeah, I was like, where are we ended? Oh, okay.
No, but
Got
yeah,
me.
all those names are their numbers 11 or under, and that's one of the bets is under 11.5.
Okay.
So that's what I'm taking.
You want to go,
Okay.
Mamba?
Yeah. So for a winner, I got 4 that I like, and I'll pick one of them. I like Joey Logano at 1400. He runs good here. He won here last year. And he finished P4 in the other race. I like Brad Keselowski at 4,000.
Yeah.
Like, love that one. Kyle Busch at 1,000 because he almost won here last year, and the 8 car last year was really good in both races here. And then Reddick at 900. But I'm gonna go bad Brad Keselowski.
You like him?
Yo,
I got
I'm
burned.
telling you, they have been coming up with some speed over at RFK here recently, and like 4,000. That's
He got me good last weekend because when we did the show, he was plus 3,000, and then Saturday or Sunday when I put my bets in, he was plus 8,000, and I was like, I cannot pass up on. So I was taking him to win top 10, top 5, and he just didn't. I think there might have been a reason he was that, but I can't pass up on that ever. If you can get
no.
Brad, he just shows up places when you least expect him to.
Sometimes they just get there. I also like Michael McDowell being the top Ford.
Okay.
He ran 6th and 7th here last year.
Right.
So and they've been pretty good.
It's
my
wild
team
that
winner-
Denny Hamlin thinks Michael McDowell is the toughest driver.
He's
Denny
just
picked
massive.
him as the guy that he would want to win a bar fight.
Big guy.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. Big dude.
Yeah, I made a list of like who I wouldn't want to fight,
Yeah.
and then who like would win, and then in the middle of like I don't really know, and he was still on the wouldn't want to do it
Right.
side. Team winner for a team, I think RFK because I think Brad, but like I like colleague just because it's at like 10,000. And if AJ wins, that's more money for my sponsorship. So I get to go racing more when AJ wins.
All right.
So it's great because he's got a kid coming. So I need to get in all where I can right now. And top Toyota, I like Christopher Bell. So those are my.
Okay. Yeah, that's a field. I like Denny, especially after talking to him. But I think I'm been very good at picking second place lately. So I'm taking top 3 Denny Hamlin at plus 185. I like William Byron, but again, I just don't pick winners anymore. So I'm going William Byron top 3 at plus 285. I still think that's pretty good. I like Joey Logano, like what you're saying. I couldn't find a way that I wanted to bet him. So I was going around doing the head-to-head matchups and all that stuff. It winds up he's in Group C on the Barstool Sportsbook. So he's in Group C with like Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, all that stuff. So I have Joey Logano being the best out of Group C. So and then I'm going to put just a chalk bet on the favorite with Kyle Larson just because I think somebody had said that he's on the same tires that he was at in Homestead, and obviously he's a little bit pissed off with the way that he was last week. So I'll go Larson to win, Denny top 3, Byron top 3, and Joey Logano best in Group C. That's what I think I'm going to do.
At this point, I would take Larson to win the championship at this point of the season,
right?
Because they tugged on Superman's cape at the end of last year. He ran himself out of the playoffs, literally. And then they came back to Homestead and dominated. I'm like, and he was talking about, I need to get back in the lab. You know, he's like, I need to get better. That guy needs to get better. And you've seen it this year. They just haven't been able to finish it off.
Yeah. And like you said, Joey, defending champ, Denny won 2 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? So I think
Denny's won like 4 times here in the last like 8 years or something.
Yeah.
Like he's got a lot. And
Truex
is good here too.
And he seemed pretty confident about it when we were talking about it. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to win again this week." So I love that shit. So that's which means he's going to finish in the top 3. So that's it. And even Quig's got us. Like he told me and Spider about Brad K last week. I'm taking a break from Brad K because as soon as he called, I took him to win top 3, top 5, and best in Group D. I lost it all.
8,000 is just ridiculous. For him, though.
And he finished 19th, so it was actually in line. You know, when you think about it. Before we go, I want to thank Mamba for actually repping the brand. Mamba's one of the guys who picked up. He's one of the millions that copped the Barstool sweatshirt from the Barstool store. So go out and get one now. Quiggs is also wearing it, as equally as handsome. I will tell you something else that you might want to buy. You can go to Lionel, and they sell these die-cast cars. And if you act quickly, I think there's only like 2 or 3 million of these left. You can get the Mamba Smith diecast, which I haven't opened up yet. Yeah, I'm the one.
You did not.
Yeah, I'm the one who bought it. Yeah, so this is nice. This is good looking. So I got the Mamba right here, the 2. So it would have cost me an extra $10 to have it signed. And I was like, I don't need to spend that shit, right? I'm going to see this guy in person at one of these races. So I got the Mamba diecast. So if Lionel calls you and said, we sold one, it was from the big man.
Hey,
Mamba,
man,
you're welcome back anytime. Is there anything that you need to pump before you leave?
No, man, just everyone keep coming out to the races. It's a good time. Like NASCAR is in a really good spot. We're having a lot of fun, making a lot of cool content. We got these guys coming out to some more races. I know hopefully we can get them out to even more than what they're scheduled for. Big stuff coming up, right? We got Throwback Weekend this weekend, North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. That's going to be a huge week. Super stoked about that. And then your boy is getting back into a race car. I'm going racing May 27th in the Cars Tour. I got a cool throwback scheme for Kevin Harvick coming out with Lee Falk Racing and them boys. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. And I saw some of the throwbacks for this week. Who's our guy? Briscoe. Briscoe's got that old Tony Stewart with the flames on his thing. Some of the cars are going to be good. So that's just something else that you can watch for NASCAR 3 o'clock Sunday in FS1. Mamba, thank you so much. I know we'll have you on again, right? You're cool with doing this?
Hell yeah. Anytime. Y'all just call.
Yeah, Spider will be back next week. But on behalf of Quiggs, Liam, Mamba, Spider, and me, happy Mother's Day to everyone. Because we're women first on this podcast. Right?
Always a good reminder for me.
Let's go order some flowers.
Love you,
now.
Mom.
Yeah, enjoy the races, guys. Talk to you next week. Peace.